I was born on a planet
I was born on a planet
I'm growing up in a world
where 60 million children never go to school.
那里2/3的人不会读写。
她们是妇女或女孩。
ou dire tout haut ce que l'on croit.
Et écrire librement ce que l'on pense.
est encore interdit à trop d'hommes et de femmes.
Где доступ к знаниям, культуре и науке
часто остается привилегией немногих.
En el que la contaminación se considera a menudo un problema ajeno.
En el que todos condenamos el cambio climático.
Pero no cambiamos nuestro modo de vida.
ويتعرض هذا التراث وتلك الذاكرة إلى الإهمال والتدمير.
Alors partout dans le monde, l'UNESCO agit.
Para acompañar y asesorar a los estados.
为了让每个孩子，无论男孩还是女孩，
Ait accès à une éducation de qualité.
Qui fasse de lui un citoyen du monde.
So the freedom of expression and freedom of the press
Are respected.
باعتبار هذه الحرية شرطا للتمتع بالكرامة والديمقراطية.
Pour que la diversité culturelle soit préservée.
Чтобы уникальные памятники были бы известны и защищены.
Para que el agua, los océanos y la biodiversidad
se reconozcan como recursos valiosos.
So that all women and men
puissent ainsi mieux vivre ensemble.
Parce que c'est d'abord dans l'esprit des hommes et des femmes que la paix se construit.
Est-ce que François-Xavier Priolo a des piles?
Voilà. Ce matin, Frédéric Bedos a eu un problème de pile. Moi, c'est ce soir. Heureux de vous accueillir, en tout cas, ce soir pour ce moment culturel organisé en partenariat avec la...
Welcome tonight, together with the French delegation at UNESCO. We have called this event Peace on Beating Drums. Yes, we can clap. We are very careful. We keep our distances. You all know this by heart now. Yes, we can take out our face mask when we're outside, but not in the room except for our speakers. We also want to greet those following us on our social media. This evening is also on the internet. This is the end of an amazing day. We started at 9. Thank you for those that are resisting tonight, that are here with us. Hello to those who are following us live. This evening is totally exceptional. We will take you on a trip with different stops, and different people and artists will share the universe. First of all, it was a beautiful encounter last year. Véronique Roger-Lacan, the French ambassador to UNESCO. Please give her a round of applause. Véronique Roger-Lacan, you have the floor. Come and join us, please.
Le micro. Ah.
Dear Frédéric, dear François-Xavier, dear audience, dear ambassadors, Mrs. Senator, Mr. Minister, it's a great joy to be here tonight with you and to be able to inaugurate within this forum, Normandy for Peace, a new cycle which I hope will be eternal as long as the Forum Normandy for Peace will be. Culture, education, science for peace. Last year, I suggested to President Morin to have among this forum a special dedicated session on culture and education for peace. Normandy for Peace is a very high quality forum. You were able to testify this even after one day. Some of you have been here since the morning. You have experienced great speakers, great analysis, great journalists on various political and military aspects. Now the question is whether security, peace is about managing weapons, about managing war, about various avenues, or if there are other ways for stability and for peace. I want to thank our ambassadors to UNESCO, our ambassadors to UNESCO from the various countries. We are working at UNESCO for education, science, and culture. This was founded in 1945, straight after the Second World War. At the same time as the UN Charter was developed, created, and the UN was organized. And during that time, the founding leaders said that war has to be coming out of the men and the women. We need to sow the seeds of peace by learning to know one another, by finding out about each other's culture, by getting to know each other, to make sure that each culture would become the culture of humanity. This is our world heritage. This is the heritage of the whole planet. We are here to show that our different cultures are part of our world heritage, human heritage, and as we get to know each other's cultures, besides non-proliferation treaties, etc., we will manage, and we manage to contribute to peace and security and safety and to peace management. François Xavier, Frédéric, and President Morin and others have been very attentive to the ideas which we've had and shared. And I thought of Michka Assayas, first of all, who is leading a show on France Inter talking about rock. Every night there is this show. I also thought about Zaina Abirached, who is a cartoonist, a wonderful cartoonist, whom you're going to discover tonight, who actually tells stories through her cartoons on Lebanon, on Austria, and other bridges of cultures. We also thought of Jules, who is author, cartoonist, and author. I have to pay attention to what's happening behind me. Jules published recently A Cowboy in Cotton, which is the last episode of Lucky Luke, telling the story of a black sheriff, the first one of his kind. So each one of them, and Michka also proposed various groups, rock groups, Pierre Vaccini, Elaha Soror. I will speak a bit more about Elaha Soror. She is a woman who, in Afghanistan, won the Afghan Star Prize, and because of this prize, and also because of other things, was persecuted, had to leave Afghanistan. She now lives in London, and she will be here with us tonight. So all these examples show that, unfortunately, in the world, there are still conflicts, there are still events like those that were used as a foundation for the UNESCO, yet at the same time there is great momentum towards culture through cartoon, through rock music, and this is what we are going to experience tonight, and I'm very happy about this. Let us give a round of applause for Véronique Roger-Lacan. We will now start our program with Michka Assayas, a France Inter journalist. Hello, everyone. I'm not a political ambassador, professional. I work at the radio. This is a kind of communication. I feel more at ease that way. To tell you the truth, it's a little strange to me that the Association for peace and music would be presented as an event for someone of my age, peace and music is a mixture which in my mind has always been obvious. I was not even 12 in 1970 when I went to see the movie Woodstock. The motto was 3 days of peace and music. How to differentiate them or separate them? With years, I started seeing things differently. For example, a Clash concert in Paris, I was almost walked over before the police could come to put an end to all this violence. Or another time, I was beaten up by a skinhead during a concert. These were how we learned about rivalry between the various bands, groups, between different social classes. So I'm totally aware that in a much deeper way that music has not always been there to soothe things, but often, even in recent European history, which we're all concerned about, it has raised hostility and repression. Just last night, for an example, on my radio, my excellent colleague was interviewing Vladimir Kosma, the movie maker, you know, who made all these great movies. He was saying that during his distant youth in the country where he grew up, in Romania, which had a tyrant leader at the time, they were saying that French music, Debussy, Ravel, as decadence. Jazz also was not even to be mentioned. You could not play jazz music because it was American. In communist Eastern Europe, rock stars could be imprisoned. Their songs were considered as evil. Strangely enough, we know that in some countries today, in the Middle East, in Central Asia, metal music, very popular with the youth, are frequently arrested and imprisoned, not talking about other cults which could be controlling and overseeing large territories, and they have destroyed some music instruments and imprisoned musicians. We call them barbarians. But maybe our memory is a bit short. Do we remember that in Florence, in Italy, between 1494 and 1498, a Dominican priest set up a Christian Republican Republic, religious and Christian republic. They were God's nuts. They were there to take paints, beautiful dresses, jewels, and would burn all of them in order to celebrate music alongside peace is not always without danger. We are particularly touched by the presence of Eola Soror. She spent most of her time in Iran before moving to Afghanistan in 2001. In 2010, she won a prize, the Afghan Star Prize reward. She was threatened to death. She had to flee. She is now a refugee in London, and she will come and sing and play with the group Kefaya. And she will also share her testimony of her experience. Before we do this, we won't just have music and words. We will have cartoons and drawings. We've seen a few already. 2 artists will be here alongside us this evening. Behind me, these are no newcomers. These are world cartoonists. Zeina Abirached, both from France and Iran, and you have a strong connection to music. And we also have a star, Jules, who does not know the .com family and the series Silex and the City? Jules recently took over the Lucky Luke cartoons. And last but not least, we do have another musician here tonight with us, and this is a selfish pleasure. Piers Faccini, a singer and songwriter, he's come here with his musician, Zalik. I love his voice. I love the depths of his musical approach, multicultural approach. Piers is English, Italian, and French, and through imagination is also from the delta of Mississippi, from Northern Africa, from Mali, is all of that together. This musician is always seeking for new roots. He feels at home everywhere and nowhere. Tonight, Piers Faccini is here with us.
They'll gather no seed, they'll break no bread, they'll gather no seed, but a hunger instead. Bring me my home back. They'll nourish no root, they'll feed no soul, they'll grow no leaf, but a moaning and talk. Bring me my home back. Stone me and I'll pray, shoot me and I'll fall, cut me and I'll bleed, bells toll for a soul. Bring me my home back. Halbach was my home when wind was my bride. For mentor I fled from skies far and wide. Give me my home back, 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 give me my home back. for the hope and the tear, dunya. I believed in her in a dream on the moon, dunya. I believed in her for a dream. Hey, yeah, dunya. 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 Yeah, yeah, dunya. Yeah, yeah, dunya. Yeah, yeah, dunya. Hey, yeah, dunya. Merci. Ça c'était Dunya, Dunya.
That was Dunya, meaning life, a song for life, a song for love. Our next is Foghorn Calling. Foghorn Calling.
Pour nous.
This is what resonates to warn us of danger.
Foghorn calling, thought I spied a ship at the harbor gate. Saw the mooring when the anchor dropped with the iron weight. Where does the will, does the wanting? Where does the heart, there's something? Where does the will, does the wanting? A hand to hold, a hope to hold, to drag forth the darkness from you. Heard her wailing when the bell was told, it was told no more. Heard her wailing when the word is lost, it can't be true. Where does the wish, is a yearning? Where does the turn, is a burning? Where does the wish, is a yearning? A hand to hope, a hope to hold, to drag forth the darkness from you. Ship is leaving when the bell will toll, it toll for you. No denying when the word is lost, it can't be true. Where does the well, is a yearning? Where does a turn, is a burning? Where does a wish, is a yearning? A hand to hope, a hope to hold, to drag forth the darkness from you. where does a will, does a yearning, where does a turn, does a burning, where does a will, does a wanting, where does a turn, does a burning, where does a will, does a yearn, and I hope, to drag forth the darkness from you.
Merci.
Thank you. I wrote this song with Malik Ziad, so I'd like to introduce him to you. And with Malik, we wrote this song, and it was a text in English, and it means it's a warning about the ecological crisis, and I think we need this. The next song, in another way, without being a warning, it's a sort of song to gather people together, and it's the message that I have for tonight. All Aboard is the name of the song. And sometimes, often when we sing it during a concert, people start singing along with us, and it's, I don't know if you'll feel when, perhaps. Thank you.
Take the oar and row, all aboard. With the poles we go, all aboard. To the prairies wild, all aboard. Man, woman, and child, all aboard. To the prairies wild, back to back and side to side, all aboard. Now the waters rise, thunder in the skies. Now the waters
Merci beaucoup, Pierre.
Thank you very much.
Les gens pensent que
It was wonderful. People think we work in the radio for others. Yes, of course, but it's a very solitary pleasure as well. It's very selfish. And I'm very moved and touched because I'm lucky for you to be French-speaking. If you can rest your voice for a little while, but I'd just like to answer to a question. There was English that you sang in. What other languages? Yes, we were singing in Arabic, a dialect Arab, that of Malik, and I'm trying to do my best, in fact, to pronounce the words well. And so my Syrian friends say that my pronunciation is not good when I sing in Arabic. But for Algerians, it's all right. Yeah, that's what I've been told. But do you speak it fluently? No. I would love to. I sing, but no. But what about when you go see a film? I would love to, but these are a little bit. I'm beginning to do so. But I have a great love of this music, this language, and in all of these countries, we find this music and the love for the relationship, the different modes that you hear, that they disseminate everywhere, and that's my passion. So I will speak in Italian perhaps later, and yes, please explain something. How, in your path, nothing was made for you to speak in Arabic. So I think it's just because I've been uprooted. I grew up in England, but the first love at first sight, I could say, for music from another continent I hasn't visited was when I visited Malian music from Mali. And at the age of 18, I discovered an LP record, and it was the instrumental group from Mali. And I really fell for it. You cannot explain this. You cannot explain love. It was love at first sight, and something happened with this song, this piece of music, because maybe 30 years later, Ms. Shizuko, who is a virtuoso of the kora, asked me to sing it along with him. So Balake coached me, and I was able to have the possibility to savor singing as well. Look, there is something that might surprise you, a question that I have. In fact, we always say you worked with musicians from Catalonia, Catalan musicians from the Réunion Island, and we hear your language, so seeing very at ease in all of these languages, but okay, musicians understand one another. It's a universal language. Conflicts disappear, there's no more war. But the problem, I think, is when they stop doing music, what will forbid them to fight once it's not about music and hate one another and have... yes, it's true, but we could say that is just the human side of things. Of course, there are cultural differences, but it's human nature. And I believe that there's something extraordinary that happens. It might be a little cliche, but when I played around the world and I looked into the eyes of a musician, and there's no common language, but we play together, we can communicate. So that's undeniable. And I think that when that happens, music is like any other conversation. When it happens well, it goes well. Sometimes you can be bored when discussing with people. I hope it's not the case now. No, absolutely not. So when we feel this electricity, you have the contact, then things just happen. And what I love to do is to go beyond the cliche and thinking that the preconceived idea. And what I love, for example, is to take a look, a very close look, like an archaeologist, to try to see how the fashions have traveled. Like there are and I go to Andalusia, and in Italy, and then in France, and then there's the Ijaz, and it's maybe a Syrian or anyone who knows these modes of music, these styles. Maybe someone from Napoli will think it's Neapolitan music, and someone else would think it's music from my country. And what's interesting is the way in which the rhythms they travel. It's like a recipe, and
il y a des musiciens qui peuvent jouer.
There's some musicians who can play of an instrument, one music, with an influence that comes from things that prove the depth of the dialogue, the mixity, the diversity, and the way the musics have migrated. So it's exactly like a musician will share maybe a style or a recipe, and once you've tasted this, you cannot do anything else. It's so good. And then we will pass it on to our children, our friends, and so forgive me to insist, that's my bad spirit. I talked about Woodstock. I'm from a generation who believed in a naive way that people with a guitar could change the world, John Lennon, etc. And I will give you an example which will be speaking for Véronique Roger-Lacan, the ambassador for the UNESCO. There was a tour that was organized with Israeli musicians and Palestinian musicians, and they told me, it was an incredible time. They fell into each other's arms. People were crying, but it's true. 20 years later, there's still fights, and where are we at now? Where do we stand? That's just an example. And at different levels, it's everywhere. In the kitchens, in the theaters, in the schools, it's the same approach, really. It's just this thing of looking each other in the eyes. When we look at each other in the eyes, we really look at someone, you really play with the person, and yes, but reasonable people say, you musicians, you're friendly, you're naive, you're like children, and it's true, they're right. It is true. You think it's going to solve every problem. It's not up to us musicians to find solutions, but each time we play, we show that through music things are possible. So in fact, this is the example that can be applied to other areas, other fields. And yes, the title, I called an album I Dreamed the Nile. It's inspired from the 12th and 13th century. It was of Sicily, and the Normans were there as well. It's an extraordinary time. In the port in Palermo, there was Arabic, all kinds of languages were being spoken. And in these incredible times of living together, everything was flourishing, and I found inspiration from these times to talk about the present time, to speak about what's happening now. And I believe that music, when musicians are able to do something, because of course our styles and rhythms are very ancient, and you're able to dust off the origins, and you can show how important this dialogue is and how intercultural it is, how diverse, how mixed it is. There are people who assert a certain musical style and want to showcase it and say it is their own heritage and nobody else's. That happens often. Yes, that happens all the time, and with cooking it's exactly the same thing. I'm always coming back to cooking, but the English thinks that fish and chips is British, but in fact it comes from immigrants coming from it's Eastern Jews, and it was done with the gefilte fish. So yes, people like to adopt things, make them theirs, but it's interesting to look at the origins. Now I'm going to turn to Zena Abirached. who's going to take a microphone. And first of all, there is something that we need to underline. It is that Dana has a very strong connection with music, because one of her albums, the most famous albums, which is the Oriental Piano, tells the story of her. What's going on? Let's wait a minute. Each time he draws me, I become more horrible. I wasn't so that mean to him. So, yeah. Now he's here. What can we do? We invited him. So, okay. I think, Piers, you'll be interested in it. Yes, I listened to him speaking, and Abdel Lashain, my grandfather, must be listening to this, and he wanted to license one prototype which was made and built, and it was the drama, it was the quarter tone, and this, he didn't have time to commercialize it, but what happened is that he spent 20 years of his life to try to change his piano, being the Western instrument by excellence, and you cannot change its shape like a string on a guitar, but he tried to find a mechanic way to have the quarter tone as in Oriental music, and I think he would have liked to have a mix of traditional guitar, and then there's the gombré, that's a normal guitar, and then I did the same thing, and I'm happy to hear this story because I add a piece of fret, so the note is always the same as in the piano, and I add something to have the quarter tone. So I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to do it later. He added a pedal to his piano, and he replaced the pedal, the mute pedal, and what is interesting is that when you release the pedal, it becomes a normal piano again. It's a bilingual piano, so to speak. Was it a utopian piano, kind of a utopia? Yes, and finally, wasn't it the dream to bring together two worlds which were watching each other with hatred? And is it a dream that we could have today? I think so. I think it's necessary. What really pleased me is that this piano, as you said before, is, well, there was only one kind, a prototype made in Vienna in the 50s, which came back to Beirut by boat. It's a long story. And then when the comics was published, I was surprised to see that several pianists had tried to reach me, to contact me, because they wanted to see the instrument, they wanted to see how it worked, and believe it or not, 3 years later, there is almost a twin piano of this prototype, and it's in Belgium. You needed a bilingual Belgian person to create it. I'm not going to tell you the entire story. It's a very long story, but I received a phone call from a piano maker in Belgium, and if we cannot bring this piano here, we will make it. And I thought, oh, these Belgians are crazy, and I put him in contact with my daughter, and she's in Beirut. 5 years ago, we are not used to Zoom, and you don't know my mother, but it's very funny to imagine that with her laptop, she was able to show the piano to this person in Belgium, and he was taking notes. And a few months later, he transformed one of his piano into a quarter tone. And then of course, I don't know if it'll become an important instrument, but from this utopia came a need.
One last question. We saw a drawing, a picture that portrays a Beirut that you did not know or experience what you saw earlier on. These are pictures taken from my first book, Beirut in the 80s, the Beirut of my childhood. You also drew an imaginary Beirut. I was wondering, in view of the situation in the country of Lebanon, do you have hope? That's a tricky question. Yeah, sorry, I'm not being very nice. It's very difficult. It is particularly difficult to have hope. We were talking earlier on about the role of musicians. I think the role of artists is also to try to get some rays of hope, to try to pull out some rays of hope, to convey something in that line, along the line of hope, vitality, exchange. Are you holding on to it? Yes, we are. It's a matter of survival. Yes, absolutely. My work from the start is around the issue of memory. We have not done this work of memory during the 15 years old war, the 15 years war. There's not been a work carried out on how to continue living in a city after war. There's a kind of amnesia, political amnesia. I don't want to go into detail now. This is the heart of my work, really. We hope that things will get better and that your work will bear fruit. Maybe, Piers, you should go back to it now.
Ta mélodie est mon réveil, la nuit est de bitume et de terreur. Délivre-moi de ma douleur, oiseau, que ta musique devienne lumière, éclaire la pénombre, je rêve encore, et promets-moi que tu m'attendras. Oiseau, ton chant est pour le cœur, miséricorde. Du noir et des ténèbres, soulève-moi. Tu es mon seul espoir, délivre-moi. Tu es mon seul espoir, délivre-moi.
Merci.
On parlait donc de...
We were talking but microtime, tone, added notes to an instrument for guitar and piano. With the guitar, it's the same thing. I'm adding on a note on classical guitar to find a hidden note on a regular guitar as it has become today.
Si pirà allora chi li vedi è annamori, ma noi a due belli, ma noi a due belli, ma noi a due belli, ci amiva maiella, e la dia vogliela, ma è fatta innamorare, ma è fatta innamorare, la camminatura non parla, a si bella tu non gli innamorare non mi faceva. everywhere I search for you. Blind, blind I go. Blind, blind I go. And everywhere I search for you.
Malik Zeyad.
Malik Zeyad. Piers Faccini.
Merci.
A great thank you. Well done. I would encourage you to listen to his album. It's like a Noah's Ark with all the musical animals on the planet. Brittany languages to the Mediterranean plains. I read this somewhere. If you go through the south of France, Gare, go and visit him. Okay, he's no longer there. It was a beautiful village.
C'est dans le parc national des Cévennes.
In the Cévennes.
Une demi-heure. Bah voilà.
Okay. You do music, you do musical workshops, painting. Okay. All of that, yes. Thank you, Pierce, and we will meet again soon.
Bon. Je rigole. Alors, qui est déjà.
We're gonna continue, and we're gonna now welcome the group Kefaya with Elaha Soror, someone who went to study jazz music in the north of England, and Al Maxwin. These are the musicians of the group Kefaya. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Jules and I said we would be talking music. First of all, when we met somewhere in Paris at the Place de Clichy, and he was sitting at a cafe, and we discussed what we would be talking today, what we'd be talking about today. And I said to him, do you listen to music when you draw? It was after drinking white wine. Yes. As a cartoonist, it's a bit like being a farmer. You have seasons. You don't always do the same thing. At times, you think about ideas, scenarios. At times, you have to start doing sketches, and then time when you have to put the colors. Sometimes it's more like January, February, and then you have spring. Drawing is more in the summertime. Putting colors is more like in the autumn. There are times when you can't do any of that, especially when you put the color with your paintbrush. You need to have tempo, you need to have swing, you need to have some external incarnation of yourself. And music is a wonderful vector for this. What kind of music then? I love listening to diva, Venezuelan, Egyptian diva, Brazilian divas, French singers, women, female singers, and all their recordings.
Au carrefour de plein de choses, c'est Rosa.
Rosa Eskenazi, she's a great singer. It's kind of a Greek music, Arabic, Greek type music. She's a lady from Anatolia. She used to be a drug addict.
1920.
And there are some old recordings from 1920s from Rosa Eskenazi. So I learned Greek from that. Her songs mainly spoke of overdosing on drugs. These were great drug addicts.
Repetico, qui est ce style de musique merveilleux.
The repetico music type. I forgot to ask Zena what kind of music she listens to when she is painting.
C'est con comme question, mais enfin, c'est une activité peut-être plus comment, enfin passive. Ouais. Bah oui. Il y a peut-être une activité.
Maybe there is more of a passive activity when you are doing painting. There are many painters who listen to music, and also many musicians who also do painting. Often, in my show recently, there was a group with a guitarist who started painting, and that's how he started doing music. Was that the same for you?
Oui.
I like the idea of seasons. I cannot listen to music while writing. This is not possible for me, but yes, when I start drawing, pretty early on, I listen to radio. Like what? I will not give you any names. I listen to a lot of shows, talk shows actually. You need some background, not so much background. I need just some support. Do you listen to it loud, medium, not too loud? What about you, Jules? I think for me, it never stops. I never stop. I never pause. I listen to it from the beginning to the end of the day. It's a magic of playlists. In the past, you had to get up, turn the EP over, the LP over. Now I have a group of playlists. I have and that can go on for 18 hours. You were talking about overdose. Do you not get overdose of listening to all these music? No, it reminds me of home. Do you listen to metal music? I have young girls
Mon Dieu, sans confession, qui sont des grosses métalleuses.
who love metal music.
De temps en temps, elles explosent un peu la sono.
From time to time, they play out loud. Do you have to listen to sad music to write jokes?
Un cerveau très bizarre entre la veille et le rêve. Cette espèce de zone.
This is a strange area of your brain between being awakened and being dreaming. This is where the gags or the jokes are coming from. I take a nap.
Dans le demi-réveil, voilà.
And in my half sleep, I get these
qui viennent en
jokes. Sometimes we have students
Et en fait,
coming, young students coming to my workshop.
parce que c'est un lit comme ça qui est.
The main part of my workshop is a bed, and I tell them that, look, I'm going to have my nap, so you can read some cartoons in the meantime.
L'artiste au travail.
Oui.
And in their reports, they wrote that this is the place where I'm creating and working on my new creations. Now, moving on to another topic.
Là, c'était peut-être plus prévisible dans le train pour venir à Caen.
We met on the train coming over here today, and we talked about something which really troubled me.
Lacan faisait allusion.
Véronique Roger-Lacan was mentioning the fact that you introduced in one of the last Lucky Luke cartoon a black sheriff whom really existed in the past.
Dans Lucky Luke.
Of course, there was no black people in Lucky Luke.
Les albums de
Yet we discussed the past albums, which recently, I think in Toronto somewhere, there was a kind of a criticism. Some of these albums were burned. You are not drawing any caricatures, you are just telling stories, which are nice ones.
Au fond,
And I was thinking deep down in what you are doing. You are always trying to make things look lighter. You chase away difficult things. Are you not aware or afraid that conflict will keep on coming back? Yes, in a sense, we can say that culture is universal and timeless. There are times when we may put it into some context. So, of course, drawing, cartooning is a bit like that, especially humoristic cartoons. So all the societal questions that were part of these past cartoons are now coming up to the surface. I think creation is something that's very lively, that we need to keep on bringing something new. That example of the black sheriff in Lucky Luke, looking back, it's been 8 years now that I took over Lucky Luke. I was surprised to find out that in the American heritage, there were no Jews, no black people. Of course, these are sensitive topics, painful topics to tackle under a humoristic approach. And I was surprised to hear that we have not mentioned this important part of the history up front. And this Lucky Luke with this black sheriff is something that is being translated around the world through generations. It's a wonderful weapon. We talked about music as being a wonderful tool or weapon, but these other characters, in the most noble sense of it, do also have a magical virtue for connecting people at a time when people were all separated, and with modern technology we are staying in our silos. We all have our screen, our computers. I think we have an average of 5-6 computers in every home, or whether it be computers or mobile phones with different screens. So these kinds of cartoons actually go beyond these silos. In my show on the radio, when you ask people what kind of music do they listen to, they will tell you some very narrow things like metal or micro styles of metal music. And when you start opening up this box and you play all kinds of music for everyone, not thinking that this type of music is for this type of people, etc., actually you find that people are very open. I don't know if that's the impression that you have, that they don't necessarily look for some micro-identity. There is an anecdote coming back to this whole issue of cartooning regarding peace and what it can mean. Putting this into context, in our history, world history, at one point there were two men who drew, one who did the fine art, Jean Moulin, the resistant activist, and when he was arrested by the Gestapo in Lyon and was tortured, he was drawing, he caricatured those who were torturing him, and it was a form of freedom through drawing. And at the very same time, 3,000 kilometers away, there was someone in a meeting with other people in a meeting, and he was just drawing the people who were sitting around the table. That was Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin, while Jean Moulin was drawing in his cell, was actually drawing some of the leaders that he was sitting with in this meeting. This was taken out of the archives from the KGB, and this person who had all this power was also a caricaturist like Jean Moulin.
Quand même compte pas mal.
Oui.
So the context is also very important. Now, Kefaya, is Kefaya ready? Is the Kefaya group ready now?
Oui.
Okay, I think we are ready. Elia, Soro, Juliana, and the drummer.
To get on stage. Thank you. Hello. Bonsoir. Bonsoir.
Good evening.
ما قربانت شوم ما قربانت شوم الله تو دانی جو من آرنجی گلم رخسار نارنجی سیاه بختم کدی حین جوانی جو من آرنجی گلم رخسار نارنجی همین باشد دعای من شب و روز جو من آرنجی گلم رخسار نارنجی که عاشق را بکام دل رسانی جو من آرنجی گلم رخسار نارنجی جو من آرنجی رخسار نارنجی جو من آرنجی رخسار نارنجی فرار مرغا شدم ز دست نارنجی فرار صحرا شدم ز دست نارنجی ما قربان رخو زلف و بناگوش و من آرنجی گلم رخسار نارنجی شکر دور لبانت میزنه جوش و من آرنجی گلم رخسار نارنجی شکر دور لبانت جال جو من آرنجی گلم رخسار نارنجی مکن یار قدیم آخ مکن یار قدیم خود فراموش جو من آرنجی گلم رخسار نارنجی جو من آرنجی رخسار نارنجی جو من آرنجی رخسار نارنجی فرار مرغا شدم ز دست نارنجی فرار صحرا شدم ز دست نارنجی Thank you. من عاشقک روی تونم گل بخار کشته چشم و ابروی تونم گل بخار مست نفس و بوی تونم گل بخار ابریشم بگی سوی تونم گل بخار در باغ شما دو بوته نیشکر است گل بخار زیرای بوته قند بچه لب شکر است گل بخار خوابش برده دو دستگش زیر سرم گل بخار بیدارش نکن که عاشقی درد سرم گل بخار من عاشقک روی تونم گل بخار مست نفس و بوی تنم گل بخار ابریشم گیسوی تنم گل بخار کشته چشم و ابروی تنم گل بخار بر بام بلند و کفتر شیرازی عاشق نشدی چرا کلاه مندازی عاشق نشوی که عاشقی بدبختیست با درد و غمش میسوزی و میسازی من عاشقک روی تنم گل بخار کشته چشم و ابروی تنم گل بخار مست نفس و بوی تنم گل بخار ابریشم گیسوی تنم گل بخار بخار من عاشقک روی تنم Thank you. These songs are from our album Songs of Our Mothers. It's a collection of folk songs written by Afghan women. It's stories of love, separation, resilience, and just being a normal person. The song that we are going to perform called Gul Sadberg, it's written by Abe Mirza, known by Abe Mirza. Her name is Delaram. She started her career during the 60s, but she couldn't continue, unfortunately. Spent 2 years of her life in prison because she was a female singer from central Afghanistan, Molistan. And when she released from the prison, she never sang again. And this is one of her songs that she wrote. She talks about being lonely between the people that they know her the most, and she lived with them all her life. Gul Sadberg. گل صد برگ تابستان و میار، فرار از ملک مالستان و میار، فرار از ملک مالستان و میار. از آن روزه که گشتم از وطن دور، جگر پر درد و دل نالان و میار، جگر پر درد و مسلمانا در این شار شمایم، غریب و به کس و به آشنایم، غریب و به کس و به آشنایم. چلم پر کو بده بار مسافر، که امشو اینجی و فردا کجایم، که امشو اینجی و فردا کجایم. دلم از دود تنباکو سیایم، اگه باور نداری نیگوایم، اگه باور نداری نیگوایم، اگه باور نداری نیره بشکن تمام پرده های نیسیایم، تمام پرده های نیسیایم. گل صد برگ تابستان و میار فرار از ملک مالستان و میار فرار از ملک مالستان و میار از آن روزه که گشتم از وطن دور جگر پر درد و دل نالان و میار جگر پر درد و دل نالان و هی یار. Thank you. چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه مسافر بچگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه و چرسی بچگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه مسافر بچگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه صاحبم نیستی و من مالت نیستم در کنج جیب تو دستمالت نیستم با هم تا اوج ها پرواز کنیم باز ببین که چه تو هم بالت نیستم هی چرسی بچگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه مسافر بچگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه و چرسی بچگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه مسافر بچگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه غیرت ناقیر بچه تب خوشی که عمر باقیر بچه در قصه حلال و حرام چی هستی داشته باش هوای ساقیر بچه هی چرسی بچگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه مسافر به چگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه و چرسی به چگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه مسافر به چگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه دگه پی مفته هر ملا گوش نکو دگه پای تو و بالا گوش نکو بیاد بین میدان چرخی بزن مستی کو دگه پی لودا گوش نکو هی و چرسی به چگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه مسافر به چگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه و چرسی به چگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه مسافر به چگک چقدر چشمایت قشنگه زدی چرس و چلم یارکت همراهت بجنگه 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 Thank you. Merci.
Merci à... Ah, est-ce que voilà. Merci à Kefaya.
Thank you, Kefaya. I think the time has come to welcome you.
Thank you. Voilà. Elle a Soror. Je pense que vous pouvez l'applaudir à nouveau parce que c'est une immense chance.
You can applaud her once again. It's very lucky to have her. Anne Maxweden is coming from Crete. He took a plane to join us, and Julian Hodarelli, who is of Italian origins, as his name says so, and part of the Kefaya group.
Il faudrait, if you wish to understand what I'm saying in French, you should use this. Yes, so I hope it's easy to adjust. Ça c'est mieux. Et voilà. Okay. Bon, alors, I'm going to say this in French, so it's going to be translated to you. So, alors, peut-être j'ai besoin de mes lunettes, excusez-moi.
I need my glasses.
Alors, Kefay, il faut que quand même je vous dise...
So, Kefay, I must say in 2 words, I'm very lucky to be here, surrounded by all these musicians. I discovered a few years ago during my radio program, it's an Arabic name that was also used to designate the spontaneous movement of youth born a few years ago, known as Arab Spring in Egypt. And it's unusual. We have Julian Rodarelli, who is from Milan, and he went to study jazz guitar in the north of England. And he, there in England, I think 20 years ago.
Yes, ok, très bien. Bon. Et
so he joined Indian music players, and Mr. Maxwin, who is on my left, plays the keyboards, and he had shared the same passion for music, for Indian music, but not only trip-hop, dub, techno, Afro-Cuban music, flamenco, and Arab music. So it's not the end of the list, but of course, tell me if I went wrong. There was a flamenco Spanish musician, I think. I'm going to see if this translation is working or not. Yes? Okay, you are proving. Good. So a saxophone player also, but a Cuban jazz player and an Afghan singer. So to record their album, Radio International, which was edited in '96, you played in Spain, Italy, and India as well. And I remember I had noted on your internet website 5 years ago, you said we are all immigrants. The chains of nationalism want to close us in within borders and fences, checkpoints and barriers that separate us. But embracing our companions, our road partners, is embracing the road of human experience. These are words that are very strong, and I would like now to sum up things, and then we're going to talk about your very different background. It's important to know what you went through before coming here, and believe me, it wasn't simple. She almost didn't arrive here because she was arrested by the French police, and before that in London. It was very complicated, and we had to really fight for her to be able to come here. So, Elaha, you spent part of your childhood in Iran, in Isfahan, where your parents were, and you belong to the Hazara population in Afghanistan. They are said to be descendants of the Mongols who came with Genghis Khan. Is that true?
Listening, so much information that I'm not aware of that you have. So yeah, great. Wikipedia. Yeah, everybody can write on Wikipedia. However, I am a Hazara from Afghanistan. I don't consider myself an Afghan. Afghan is a false identity historically given to the people of Afghanistan. There are different ethnicities living in Afghanistan, and historically the rulers and the governors, the kings, they've been trying to erase these ethnicities. They've been trying to erase their history, the language, and so far they've been successfully managed to get rid of the people. They managed to destroy our Buddha from Bamiyan, and they managed to get hold of the government and slowly getting rid of other ethnicities, and that's very sad.
Ce qui est intéressant, c'est que en Iran,
What is interesting is that in Iran you discovered music in a very forbidden way, which means that music, pop music, was at the same time came from India, Bollywood, and from the Western world. All of that was forbidden, and you discovered tapes, I think, that were sold in the black market. And what surprised me, and I read that in an interview, it's not in Wikipedia, that I promise, it's that you wanted to sing because there's a very special system that existed in your family, which means that you communicated with your uncles and aunts who had remained in Kunduz, in the northern part of the country, and that's where your people was born, and you sent each other tapes, recorded tapes, and you told each other about your childhood, about what you experienced, and this is how you started to tell stories and started singing. Is that the case?
So long, but I approve most of the things that you just said. Yeah, I introduced to music in Iran, and my dad was bringing these forbidden cassettes for us to listen to, the music from Afghanistan. But the music that I was exposed to when I was growing up in Iran was mainly religious music.
Vous avez chanté dans une chorale coranique.
You sang in a Quranic choral, a choir.
Tawashi group, and when I went back to Afghanistan, I discovered myself as a rebellious teenager who wanted to come and introduce herself as a person. Not really. The music came, basically my interest in music developed through years and years of finding myself, basically.
Mais alors, il y a quand même une chose.
But there is something that is extremely impressive for us from the Western world. We live in a society of freedom, and in your family, the fact that you had decided in Afghanistan to sing was perceived as being a very great danger. What have your parents told you when you decided to sing?
So music is in our language. It's so embedded in our culture. So even people who try to stop people doing music, but music is in the lullabies, music in the in this even in I don't know, different kind of ceremonies. People, they try to keep this music with themselves. But yeah, the kind of music that people are scared of are the political music, or the music that can challenge people's mind, or kind of spark something in their mind to think. So right now, even if music, Taliban, they broke all the instruments, they send women back to their home, and musicians are out of work. People who make film, or any form of art right now considered as a weapon, and they are scared of it. And they making people believe that religion is the problem, and religion is against the music and the art, but it's not true, because religion itself is an art, in my opinion, and it's a great art, and it's been so old and ancient, and people are following this amazing art.
Mais je voudrais quand même qu'on revienne à votre expérience personnelle. C'est que
I'd like to come back to your personal experience. You took part in this contest. We alluded to it twice, Afghan Star, which you won, and you said you had to hide from your parents when you participated, because you went from the north to Kabul. You went down and then did they know you were in Kabul? How did they learn about it? I imagine that perhaps neighbors told them, and they said, your daughter is in the contest, and you received death threats. You had to hide, you had to shave your head, you dressed as a boy, and people wanted to murder you. So it seems incredible. How did that happen for the first time, and why?
Sorry, I have to.
Yeah, of course.
So I started music way before Afghanistan, and my problems as a musician, as a music student, it was started way before Afghanistan, but I kind of managed to stay alive while I was doing music secretly without my parents knowing, while at some point my uncle wanted to murder me, and I managed to escape from that situation. But when I was in Afghanistan, obviously, I have a really amazing sister. She right now living in Afghanistan and escaping from one city to another. she's an active woman, and she always been amazing, helping me doing music. And in the hard time of my life, she always been there for me. And she really helped me to become the person that I am right now. And she's the symbol of power, and she's a mother, she's a fighter, and she's a symbol of power for me. So with the help of my sister, I managed to keep myself alive, and we were living outside home. I was not living with my parents anymore. So yeah, it was difficult. Well, it surprisingly for us.
Difficult is a very slight word.
Yes.
It became so normal. I don't know how to describe it, because war, problems, like difficulties, like people wanting to kill you. It became like so normal that for me, I don't have any other word to explain that feeling.
Yes.
Honestly, I cannot explain that feeling.
No, but did you come face to people who threatened you and wanted to kill you?
Yes.
And what happened? Describe the scene.
It's a little bit sad for me to talk about it, but it's been a few different events when random guys in a car, they attacked me and my brother and my sister while we were walking back home. Or a few times happened in the mall when I was, I just wanted to be a normal person and go for a walk, and I've been attacked by normal people. And members of family came to my flat, and like an invader, they beat me up and they broke everything in my house, and I had to call the police to come and.
Okay, I'm going to say this in French because it's more simple for the people who listen to us. Oui, et également ce qui s'est passé.
What happened also is that you learned how to read and write to young girls who didn't have access to teaching, and that was also reproached to you.
Privilege of studying in, and to be able to read and write. And when me and my family, we went back to Afghanistan, we were in Kunduz, and there were neighbors' children, especially girls the same age as me or younger, that their parents, they didn't want to let them go to the public school because it was, Kunduz was still dangerous because Taliban was, in every corner of the city. So they were not, so many people were not trusting for their daughter to go to normal school because they were, scared of somebody attacking them, or they were not sure that Taliban, would come again. You know what I mean? Which, Taliban always been there, and the war became part of our life, became so normal, and Taliban right now is becoming normal, unfortunately, and this was one of my experiences working as a teacher, and it was great, and I feel if I have the opportunity to be able to teach somebody, I will do it again.
Et est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire dans quelles circonstances vous avez...
Can you tell us in what circumstances you had to flee Afghanistan and go to London? How did that happen?
Well, I came illegally, like every single refugee who, attach themselves on anything, any hope that is on their way, and I just took a chance.
Comment avez-vous fait le voyage?
How did you do the journey? Which way did you go?
It's not something new, for us to know, like every other refugees.
Ok, très bien, je comprends. Alors maintenant, je me tourne vers...
Now, turning to Julian, who founded the group, and I want to ask him how he met Elaha. How did you meet?
Yeah, we met in London. Obviously, London is such a multicultural place, and there is all sorts of music. And us three, we met in Leeds, and Joost and Hal, we start doing our research into Indian classical music and various folk traditions. And And then we had a common friend. There was we knew Elaha was looking for a band, for musicians to play Afghan folk. Actually, she was invited, and some of the original music as well. She was invited often to various refugees festival happening, like Afghan festival happening in Europe, of diaspora and refugees people. They organized like music events. So she needed a band. So us three basically, we.
But the strange thing is, la chose étrange, I'm going to say this.
What was strange is that you found musical language, common musical language. What is common between the song that Elaha learned in Afghanistan, in Iran, the jazz that you played, the way you play the drums and play jazz? It's so unexpected. Did you easily understand each other?
Well, yeah, there was quite a lot of work put into it, but I think Elaha has been our teacher for what regards like Afghan folk. You know, we learned a lot through her.
Il a été un bon élève.
A good teacher, a good student.
As well, like,
I guess,
you know,
oui.
obviously.
Mais alors, bon, on a toujours cette idée que la...
We always have this idea that music enables people to get closer, people who are very different. I would imagine that it would not have been easy to understand each other. Did you have times of conflicts, times when you did not understand each other? Wouldn't say that you became enemies, but maybe you thought you could never make it because it was just too huge a project.
Like this. But you know, we do share, you know, we're all very close also as friends. And also I think the fact that we have such an interest in so different music tradition as make your mind a little bit more flexible into learning new musical languages. So I think that made it easier, made a kind of a smooth collaboration.
Oui. Yeah. Je voudrais quand même demander à Elaha maintenant.
I would like to ask Elaha now, what is your experience of your life in the Western world, in England, as a refugee, as an Afghan woman? Do you feel safe? Or do you feel threatened, maybe in a different way? Is it something that is now away from you, this feeling of being threatened?
The only thing that threatens me is the ignorance, that people are very close-minded and they just, you know, hold on the things that they hear, they don't really research. That's something that scares me the most.
Est-ce que vous avez expérimenté une...
Did you find any hostility? Did you feel any hostility among the London people? People say they are xenophobe. Did you feel that?
Well, first of all, not so many people, when I walk in the street, not so many people think that I am an Afghan until they ask me, and I would say, I am from Afghanistan, I'm not Afghan. So they consider me, you know, somewhere from China, Japan, or somewhere, because people, they are not aware of other ethnicities living in Afghanistan. Anyway, somehow I managed to escape that, you know, you know, as somebody who look very Oriental, in the West, I am in the category of people who are a bit hierarchy, you know, than somebody who's brown, so or look Middle Eastern. So, but in general, I have to say that every single refugee, they, you know, when you leave your home, your family, and the things that you love, and you have to find a new home and make that place your home, it takes a lot of energy and commitments. And I feel home right now in London, and you know, I feel that I am from London and I own London because you know, I feel safe there. I respect people, and people respect me back, and this is the best thing. And you know, it's a multicultural city, and you know, people are the people who are around me, they're very acceptant, and you know, obviously you see ignorant people, racist people everywhere, you know, in France, I don't know, in America, Australia, anywhere, even in Afghanistan, people are suffering of racism against each other as well.
Where you experience the worst of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but I think it is achievable for every single refugee to, you know, to if they find a place that you know is safe, and you know they can make that place their home if they want to. If they stick on their, you know, on the past, or just, I don't know, because for me, identity is very fluid. My identity is changing, and it has been changing. I'm not the person who was born in Isfahan in a religious family anymore, and you know.
Et justement, ce qui m'intéresse, c'est que vous avez une expérience.
You have a unique experience. I think you are probably one of the few people in this world who's experienced being a woman as a child, as a young girl in Iran, then in Afghanistan under Islamic law, and then in England, where women are looked at totally differently and have a different life. For you, the experience of being a woman in England, what did you learn from that experience?
Well, I think being a woman, man, or I don't know anything, you know, these titles are given to us. I just feel human, and I don't consider myself in. I don't want to put myself in these categories. I just feel a normal human being. Can you repeat your question again?
No, I just. What's your experience as a woman in England? Because you know, women. I'm going to say this in French. Sorry.
What is your experience as a woman in England? We talk about the women, the way they are treated in Afghanistan, but at the same time, a woman may feel that there is a lack of esteem, respect, even in the Western world.
In a level, but let's say it's been changing. It's been changing, and I felt discriminated as a woman because you know, we are living in a patriarchal world, and we cannot deny that it's everywhere in a different level. But yeah, patriarchy exists in England, and it's been exported, unfortunately. Certain mentalities, it's been exported, and well, what can I say?
Yes. Okay,
you know,
so we're running out of time.
This is a truth that we cannot, you know, we cannot escape patriarchy. We have to fight back, and it takes time to, you know, to live in an equal world. But is there equality ever existed?
Okay,
I don't know.
We're running out of time, unfortunately. I've got a very short question with a short answer. Je vais poser juste à Ella la même question que j'ai posée à Zena.
I'm going to ask the same question. Do you have hope for your country? The same question I asked earlier about Lebanon. Do you have hope for your country, Ella?
Without hope, we cannot live. So if we lose hope, we have to go and kill ourselves, which I'm not ready to do that. And I hope people of Afghanistan, you know, it's a really difficult question, I have to say, because you know, Afghanistan is the war in Afghanistan is the war of the powers of this world. It's not the war, you know, war among Afghans, you know. So I don't know. You tell me.
Ok, mais c'est déjà une belle réponse. Merci.
It's a great answer. Thank you very much, Elaha, Julian, and the other two musicians. I'm going to ask Véronique Roger-Lacan to come and join us now. And I think she can talk a lot better than I would about our next guest tonight. Thank you, Michka.
Monsieur le ministre, vous nous avez fait...
Mr. Minister, you have come all the way from Haiti, a long journey. You have been with us throughout this evening to listen to Piers Faccini, Elaha Sohor, and we're now looking forward to hearing your message, your testimony. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
Bonsoir, bonsoir à vous tous et à vous toutes.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Before I start, I just wanted to first congratulate all the artists that have been here tonight. It shows again the cultural diversity that we are seeing here as part of this Normandy for Peace Forum. Mrs. Senator, Mr. Vice President, Mrs. Ambassador, Permanent Delegate at UNESCO for France, Mr. President for the Francophone Group at UNESCO, Mrs. Ambassador, Permanent Representative at UNESCO, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors, organizers, dear guests. Let me first of all say how grateful I am to have been invited to take part in this Forum Normandy for Peace, a wonderful place to think about tomorrow's world, to think about the issue of peace. This is a universal topic, and we all know about the various crises that the world is going through. This is a desire from this region of Normandy to continue the work that has been started, memory work, in order to develop lasting peace. Haiti, just like Normandy, incarnate fight for liberty, for freedom. In 1804, Haiti became the first black republic, free republic. When threats are ongoing, our fight must also be ongoing. This World Forum is a hub for strategy, for collaborating, for fighting for freedom and liberty. I'm so glad to see so many young people discussing around the issue of global peace and global safety, how to govern peace. We've been discussing, and we will continue discussing around several issues like education, culture, health, food safety, human rights, governance for peace, reconciliation, freedom, democracy, sustainability, popular commitment, stability, justice, technological challenges, fake news, climate hazards, and all the other threats on the environment. In order to build peace, we should not only invest in police institutions, we need to also invest in culture, in discussions, in education, developing schools, universities of excellence. This forum has welcomed several speakers coming from different backgrounds who can help open up our eyes through their ideas in order to build peace. Normandy, which is welcoming me warmly tonight as a Minister for Culture in Haiti, has already connected with us 10 years ago during our traditional festival in Jérémie, the poet city of Haiti. This festival shows how culture in general can serve the purpose of peace, especially in a place like Haiti, where the issue of public safety is still very unstable. Women, young people, older people, and other invisible victims and silent victims are still many. During that festival of poetry, Normandy was represented by two of its best artistic ambassadors, guitarist Paul Zimenkis and poetess Meredith, and they went over. Sorry about the pronunciation of their name. They performed music and poetry, and that was beautiful. We remember still that particular and special edition during that first edition of this international festival. Tonight, in this evening, beating drums on peace on beating drums. We've had great speakers and artists, and I have this feeling that I'm reliving this covenant, this alliance. President Hervé Morin talked about this dialogue between cultures, and I believe this intercultural dialogue between Haiti and Normandy in 2013 already opened up the way for me being here tonight. This dialogue, intercultural dialogue, was also mentioned in 2020 by Madame Véronique Roger-Lacan during the third edition of this forum, and I'm delighted to be here in 2021 when we are talking about education and culture. Haiti is a highly cultural country. Daniela Ferriez, a novelist whom you know, a member of the French Academy, likes to say that culture will save us. We all know that our country is surviving through the energy and the creativity, through its rich culture, which is known around the globe. Haiti is the only, André Malraux said when he was visiting Haiti in 1975, he loved the richness of our country, of our culture. André Breton also realized later on the huge variety of these people. This is this variety which I am representing during this forum. I want to thank again the ambassador Véronique Roger-Lacan for inviting Haiti culture for this great meeting. And I hope that this bridge between Normandy and Haiti will bring us all peace and serenity in this desert crossing which has lasted for too long. My government wants to keep its commitment in terms of peace and sustainability in Haiti with the help of our international partners. We will continue to develop sustainable solutions in order to aim for peace. I had a discussion this morning with the president of Normandy, Mr. Morin. Together we discussed around this issue between Haiti and Normandy. The peace situation is a key factor for sustainability through culture. If culture can be fragile during a time of conflict, it can also be a factor of reconciliation at a national or even international level. Haiti, through the Permanent Delegation of Haiti, and I want to greet Mrs. Dominique Dupuis, the list of on the World Heritage list as part of the UNESCO Convention. This is a submission for our culture, and that made us very proud, made the whole population of Haiti very proud. Again, I want to thank the ambassador for being able to submit our candidacy in this World Heritage, sure that it will have a major and positive impact on the sense of belonging and ownership between all Haitian people. I don't know if you've tasted our soup. The traditional dish in Haiti has often been used to seal reconciliation between families. When you bring this soup, it shows the end of a conflict. Every January 1st in Haiti, we eat this type of soup. At home, we don't call eating, we don't say we eat, we say we drink the soup. Therefore, we have to look in all cultures throughout the world, these indicators, markers, identity markers, to strengthen and reinforce peace. This is the same conclusion for collective candidacy. Our city has submitted their candidacy. I was the former president for book and reading culture. Being a leader is also being a potential leader for unity. We want to gather people from various backgrounds, just like we are doing tonight. And throughout this forum, and even in times of conflict, culture can help bring reconciliation and peace. In that sense, Haiti is committed, has been committed since 1994, alongside other countries, through various projects. Heritage, this is a project aiming at bringing about a culture of peace by developing pluralism, intercultural dialogue, and building new identities and citizenship. Regarding intercultural dialogue, I remember André Malraux, who was a Minister of Culture under Charles de Gaulle, and his experience is an inspiration to me to understand fully the role which is mine as I take part in this evening. On behalf of Haiti and its culture, a big thank you to those who have contributed to this initiative and the organization of this event. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Very much, Mr. Minister. And now we still have a little time. We'll close with some music. I want to invite Elaha to come back on stage.
This song called Saqi Saqi Jan. The groove is 7/8, and it's a typical groove from Africa. So maybe we should learn this groove because more refugees arriving and more of this music would be heard in the radio and television soon, hopefully.
ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی چه کردی ای نگار من چه کردی با چشم اشک بار من چه کردی دل خود را به دستت داده بودم به جان بیقرار من چه کردی ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی ثروت الهی خم نبینه دل شادت الهی غم نبینه ستم هایی که از دستت کشیدم الهی در جهان آدم نبینه ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی دلی دارم دلی دیوانه دارم غم بسیار از جانا ندارم ستم هایی که از دستت کشیدم الهی در جهان آدم نبینم ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می بسیار از جانا ندارم برای آن که از غم ها گریزم به دستم تا سحر پیمان ندارم ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی ساقی ساقی جان پیاله پر می ششتی بر گل خمار تا کی
Thank you, guys. The next song called Indignados. This song is from Kefaya's previous album, Radio International. And we adopted an old Hazaragi revolutionary song, which Dawood Sarkhosh wrote it during the war in Afghanistan when about 30 years ago. And unfortunately we have to repeat, or maybe no, I don't know. Very confusing, right? We are repeating the history again and again. Yeah, this is a revolutionary song for Hazara people who have been historically discriminated and killed by the rulers of Afghanistan. And I just want to wish them hope and power for the future and equality for the future. To the Hazara people of Afghanistan.
دشمنو خمچم نداری دیگه ترس از کلونو کم نداری یک رکل بیشونه دولت ظالم اگه هم کشته شویم که غم نداریم اگه هم کشته شویم که غم نداریم ابر اگر بباره آتش و سنگ خاره خم نموشه قامت یک دانه بچه شو سنگ خاره خم نموش قامت یک دانه بچه هزاره خم نموش قامت یک دانه بچه هزاره Thank you so much. Al Maxwin, Joost Hendricks, Giuliano Matarelli, thank you for having us.
Bravo.
Merci, merci tellement à Kefaya.
Thank you so much, Kefaya. Now, I want to thank you all. And you stayed until the end, and I believe we have a lot to learn from such musicians. And I don't know if I know in my time the room would have been full. Now it's more complicated. I don't understand why music doesn't federate people more, why we only speak about rancid, horrible subjects. But this gives me hope, and I want to thank Véronique Roger-Lacan, who invited me for this show. Thank you, UNESCO. Thank you to the Normandy region. And thank you all very much. It was fantastic. I didn't expect this, and it was fantastic. Thank you, Jules, Zeina Abirached, also the entire team, and Thierry Deslandes, François Xavier, Upper, all the team. I don't know them all, but I really want to thank them all. I wish we could have continued. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Now, we're going to do everything with our heart and do it